All right, so let's get a little clarification on core. So when we talk about core training, oftentimes people tend to think about the abdominals as core, or maybe we extend that to, okay, the deep muscles around the backside. But I also want you to think about it in terms of your hips, so your glutes, areas that stabilize the joint and produce a little bit of movement there. And then with the shoulders, we're talking about that area between the shoulder blades, so the mid-traps, the rhomboids, or the whole shoulder girdle. So we're looking at scapular stability. So all of those areas are included when we're talking about core. Now, let's just go ahead and narrow it down to the midsection because I think that's where we tend to get off the most. So your core through the midsection is really designed to be a group of anti-muscles. Anti meaning anti-flexion. So the deep lumbar muscle stabilizing, keeping me from going into flexion. Anti-extension. If I were to start to fall backwards, things on the front side are going to kick in to keep me from moving sideways or moving backwards. Lateral flexion. So if I had a weight and I was trying to pull me sideways, this side's going to fire off, and now it's anti-lateral flexion. And then we also have anti-rotation. So I may have you do something like a press out where you push and it's trying to turn you, but you're preventing that movement. So we are again anti. So when it comes to your trunk, don't think about moving from that area. There aren't any exercises that I'm going to have you do where I want you either going through repeated spinal flexion, repeated spinal rotation, or even repeated lateral flexion. What we're going to do is put you in a nice neutral position. And by neutral, I mean not rotating the pelvis forward too far, but we also don't want to take that curve out. So something nice and neutral. Once we have that, I may give you something like a plank, which is anti-extension. In a plank position, gravity wants to pull me into extension. So the adaptation we want, or the response, is maintaining a nice neutral position, so we are anti-extension. If we were doing something like on the floor doing Supermans, as we pick up, the floor is trying to pull us into flexion or at least neutral, and then we're going to engage, maintaining that. Be something like a back extension, or you could be belly down on a ball where gravity wants to pull you into flexion, so we're going into anti-flexion, simply maintaining that position. When we're talking about lateral flexion, that's going to be something like either side planks. So I don't get into having somebody on a side plank and then dropping the hip up and down. If anything, we move the hips back and forward if we're in motion, or we're just looking to be stable, so anti-lateral flexion. The other way we can do that is working with something like a kettlebell or a dumbbell with carries. So if I am holding a weight here, it's trying to turn me this way, I am using that side as an anti-lateral flexing position. So side plank on the left arm and a carry on the right arm give us a pretty similar adaptation as far as the core is concerned in preventing movement. And then obviously going into the rotational ones. So anything where, whether I'm pulling something down that's trying to rotate me and staying connected, or pressing out, or maybe doing a pull-off press, all of those things we're trying to prevent movement. So summarize it, think about core as including not only the deep abdominal muscles, but also the deep back muscles around the hips and then the shoulder girdle. And when we talk about training the trunk, we're talking about anti-movement, anti-flexion, anti-extension, anti-rotation, and anti-lateral flexion. So if we keep you nice and stable there, we're going to be much healthier through the back, and you're going to be much more efficient as an athlete.